We showcase the success other businesses are having and how you can have it too. Sit back, relax, listen, and check out Rocket Lawyer's Small Business Spotlight. Hey everybody, my name is Ramon Ray. Thanks for being here as we interview and talk to another amazing Rocket Lawyer customer about how they're having protection for their business and more, and how they're growing their business and what we can learn from them. My name is Ramon Ray, publisher of zoneofgenius.com, and here talking to another really cool Rocket Lawyer customer about how they're growing their business. Dio Aldridge, thanks for being here with founder of and with Chosen Collective Consulting. Glad you're here today. How are things in your world, Dio?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Despite it all, I'm doing really well. Thank God. Yeah.
I like that. Despite it
Yeah.
all doing well, that is the attitude to have. So Dio, tell us a little about yourself and about Chosen Collective, and then we'll dive into all the things about how you're using Rocket Lawyer and how you're growing your business. So who is Dio? And then dovetail that into brings that to Chosen Collective.
Yes. My name is Dio Aldridge. I use the pronouns he, him, and L, and I am the CEO and founder of Chosen Collective Consulting. And also, as I'll share here, Chosen Leadership and Reset Retreats. So Chosen Consulting is an equity and inclusion consulting firm. We're community-based. A lot of our consultants identify as people of color or LGBTQ. We do a lot of work around supporting organizations and individuals as well, and understanding how equity and inclusion really impacts their businesses. And it can also support their colleagues and teammates within their space. I do a lot of work around including history, narrative, and storytelling, and community building. That's a really, really important part of building teams and building connections and fostering that inclusive and equitable environment. Recently, we're actually going to be announcing it fairly soon. Our reset retreats are now under a nonprofit, and that's called Chosen Leadership and Reset Retreats. And we're really excited to debut this space that allows for an engagement around holistic well-being and holistic wellness, right? Understanding our mind, body, spirit, and connection, and also the importance for us to be in community with each other, especially as folks who are entrepreneurs, as folks who are engaged in social impact, and as folks who are leaders in our different areas of life, whether that be professionally or personally. So I'm really excited to lead these different retreat and leadership kind of development activation spaces, along with, of course, the backdrop of being able to do it within a reset retreat setting in my native country of Costa Rica, and also, of course, thinking about how we can also do this activation in other parts of the United States as well. So I'm really excited to offer that and to expand that into this new year.
I love that deal. Thank you so much. Gracias, señor, por su communication.
Con mucho gusto, con mucho gusto.
Thank you. So, Dio, three things I'm picking up here regarding Chosen Collective and the family of brands you have. One, large companies or smaller companies, United Airlines, a bank could say, hey, listen, we want to serve better our marginalized, historically underserved employees. Could we do something special for them? And Chosen Collective, Chosen Consulting can help do it. That's one. Am I on the right track so far?
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, that's
Okay,
absolutely
good.
it. Yeah,
Number
one.
two, I'm hearing that individuals, Ramon Ray, can go to your site and et cetera, sign up and say, oh, this looks like a cool retreat with said demographic or groups of people, and I can go with them and do something cool or fun or serious, whatever it may be. Is that number two?
Yeah, that's absolutely number two.
I
Yeah.
got it. And then there was a third one, which escaped my memory right now, but a third part seems like you're getting into, leadership. We're teaching it and building better leaders, except for more for maybe a corporate-ish. I just want to be better and learn something. Will you provide that? Am I on the right track still?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so
Got it.
entrepreneurship mind, you're helping working it out. Yes,
I love
absolutely.
it. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to unpack what Chosen
Yeah,
Collective is the family of products and services that you offer. Yes?
yes,
Love
correct.
it. So listen, you're in business, and in business, one of the big things that people may shy away from are legal issues. Is that a concern for you? Do you need to sign contracts, work with people, and
Not at all. No, there's
dot
no
your I's and
liability.
cross your T's? Is that something important to you?
Absolutely, there's no liability at all in this business at all. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, it's really travel's chill. No, no,
Love
yeah,
it.
no, it's really important for me to, right, to really protect myself legally, but also make sure I protect my clients and the folks that I'm working with, right? I think it's a two-way street,
Mhm.
right? So I think in terms of thinking about on the consulting side, I work with a team of consultants to support me in this work, right? Both folks that I work with long term, or sometimes folks that I work with for smaller sorts of time, right? Especially when I do activations in different cities. For example, one of my clients is I'm activating a holistic wellness space at their conference, right? So, and it's in another city, it's in Houston, right? And I'm very intentional around working with like massage therapists and practitioners specifically who are from the Houston area, right? Because a big part of what I do in general is also making sure I make an economic impact because equity and inclusion, right? A lot those words don't can't take place without understanding some of the economic issues and that undergird, identity and inclusion specifically. So as Chosen Collective, it's important for a majority of that budget for that event, it's particular, for example, to go to that location and to folks who are there. Right. So in that and reaching out to folks, there needs to be, of course, a contract in place that both protects my relationship with the ultimately my client that I'm working with, right, as well as the community of people that I'm working with in order to bring this activation to life. Right. So I think it's that two-prong end. Right. And then as I continue to learn, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, being able to also have that pro plan and able to really ask questions specifically about what should be included in my contracts. What are ways that I can be fully help and protect myself a little bit more. I think some of those are so those are the things that I really am excited that I'm able to use and to do and utilize the service for.
I
Yeah.
love it. And what you were alluding to, you called it the Pro Plan. It's Rocket Legal Plus. Rocket Legal Plus is for one annual fee. You get unlimited help for your business. You get the legal documentation. You get to ask somebody for help and more. So talk about that, not the service itself, why that's so important to you to be able to say, hey, my business is growing and I have these questions. I need help. Talk about that aspect. I know that was one thing that was really important to you that you said about Rocket Lawyer and Rocket Legal Plus in particular, why it was important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of things that I just period don't know yet, right? As I grow this
That's true.
business, and I think one of the smartest things anyone can do is to say that you do not know, and you need help. And there's ways to, to reach out to people who do know a specific skill set. And I think that's one big thing, right? And I think as I also continue to empower and work with other people who are doing the same thing, or folks who who are starting or who have done it a while, and as we also engage with one another and figure things out for each other, I think it's also, a great resource for me to also compart with them, right? As I like, hey, I use Rocket Lawyer. Everybody knows I use it ultimately because it's the contract system that I use.
Yeah.
Right. So I think so that's a really big thing. Right. Um,
No, I think I love that, Dio. And one thing I want to highlight is that you said well, we said it kind of together, you don't know what you don't know. And I think for growing businesses, small businesses, even large businesses, Dio, I'm guessing that that may add a sense of safety and security that you know what you know about holistic and wellness and the communities you serve, all these things that you know so well in your team. But what you don't know is that, hey, if I have a 4x4 piece of carpet taped down in Missouri with three contractors, is that cool or not? You better be
yeah.
protected. Or if I'm hiring 17 people to do something and maybe Dio's not even seen them, but you have the legal protection between them, the contractor, the venue, the client, that must be give you some sense of security. So just talk about that again, that aspect if you don't know what you don't know and why having legal protection is important.
Yeah, no, having legal protection is extremely important. I think one of the biggest things too, and I mean, even just kind of thinking about the daunting, like scary aspect of, ultimately you building whether you building your business, building your nonprofit, right? It's almost like your baby, it's your child, right? Right. It's a big thing. It's a lot of time, it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of stress. All, it's a big piece, right? And I think particularly as I'm doing this work around equity and inclusion, like, there is also that additional kind of pressure and or target, right? And so I think it's really important for me to make sure that, yeah, like that as we go into these different spaces, these different avenues that like that a maybe a potentially a mistake that maybe not even a minor mistake, but something doesn't lead to me losing,
Could
something
be a
that
miscommunication even.
yeah, miscommunication exactly could lead to me losing this business, but more importantly, uh, a community of people being able to lose this
The
space or
ripple
be,
effect.
yeah, right? Because it's not just me. It's, ultimately it impacts my household, of
Yep.
course. It impacts my family. It impacts, this community of consultants and communities that I'm trying to serve specifically.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, yeah, absolutely.
No, I love that. And going back to Rocket Legal Plus in particular, I think we were talking about how interesting how for one annual fee you get so many services provided. I'm a small business owner, Dio. You're a small business provider. Many people have talked about, oh, using legal services in the traditional way is so expensive, so absorbent. As I've talked to many other Rocket Lawyer clients and people about this space, is that something that's of interest to you? That hey, you can manage your cost, it's cheaper, but it's full legal protection using Rocket Legal Plus. Is that something that kind of piques your interest as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's extremely important, right? That I have this legal team that's really there supporting, but also we're legally protected in a very particular way. And that's a huge piece, right? I think we don't realize how much like I mean, getting in trouble costs a lot more.
Yes, that's right.
Going through litigation, it costs a lot more, right? Both in terms of not just monetarily, I mean, of course, is like a huge impact, but of course, draining in terms of like going through that by yourself for not having particular protection set in place, right? So I think uh that it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
Supportive. Yes.
No, I love that. And two other things I want to mention, then I'm going to dive into your business and who you serve and some examples of how you're doing it. I noticed one thing you said as well. I think it's kind of the platform for your business. Those are my words, but talk about that kind of that, this when you're hiring vendors, contractors, anything you need to sign. And that's kind of Rocket Lawyers, you're a repository of record. Everything I think
Yeah,
goes through there.
exactly.
And not only is it the legal platform for you, giving that protection, but also the signage, the storage, and et cetera. Talk about how you use that and why that's so important to you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a storage system for all of the contracts that I sign, right? Which is huge, right? That it's all in the same place, right? That I can also reflect and look back on, okay, like because yeah, that's been also great to work with other businesses and other bigger entities too, because they've been also been able to look at my paperwork and say, hey, you should tweak this, or like these are some things that are also really important, right? So it's a great tool to be able to even track some of those changes over time too, right? Because again, there is something about being, thankfully, working in a community kind of centered environment where there is that free flow of feedback and support. So that's a huge piece in terms of like, of course, being able to record keep where everything is. And also that system of being able to send contracts, right? Have them revise or send feedback or sign, right? So that within itself, I didn't know there's other platforms, but maybe they don't offer the signage being able to sign and record, right? Maybe it's just like, a signing, but it doesn't offer you legal language as well, or language and feedback. So that, and I think something else I didn't mention that I should have earlier was also Rocket Lawyer being a big part of me also establishing the nonprofit in terms of ensuring the legal parameters, because we know that's a very strenuous process.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that, I dotted my I's and crossed my T's. I was like, I could either make this investment or I could and which, or I could, make the investment and do it wrong and it delayed a little bit potentially longer or whatever that could mean. Right. So I think that was also a huge asset for me. And with having the plus plan, it also allowed for me to have a discounted rate with, filing some of that paperwork.
Mm-hmm. No, I
Um,
love that. It's
so
powerful.
I think that was also a huge plus. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that one thing, just to put a bow on that, is that as entrepreneurs, oftentimes the business we're in today is not our only business we're going to be in. You
Yeah.
extended it to a nonprofit. Many colleagues of mine do that. Or you could wake up, Dio, and say, hey, I want to go into a whole different type of business. Legal
Yeah.
protection for that is good. Talk about that.
Yeah, and and that's the thing is like, I should have started with my signs, but I'm an Aries, right? I'm a Virgo rising. And so like I'm a very like business oriented person and entrepreneur and also dream oriented, but also action
Yes.
oriented. And so like, I'm 33 now, right? And at the age of 28, I purchased my first 2-unit property, right? I'm in Michigan, with my partner, with my wife,
Mm-hmm.
right, Surla. And so thinking about like just like that idea of even there, like, looking at rental agreements, like just right, this does expand, right, to different entities and especially if you do have that. I mean, I'm even a fan of, even if you decide you need something just for a season, if
Yeah.
you're like,
Be
I
protected.
need Rocket Lawyer for this one year because this is what I see myself really doing X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z. But I think, yeah, definitely for folks who have different ideas businesses for sure too.
I love it. You piqued my interest to even another question. We could extend this, so not even starting a new business, but when it goes to the personal side,
Yeah.
trust, estate. You talked about marriage, things of this nature. I think also legal protection for things of that. You just, your partner, your wife, your son, your daughter, your cousin, whatever, they want to do something here and bring you in a certain percentage. You need legal percentage for that. You're doing something and don't want to impact them or want to bring them in just a bit. All those things, and God bless legal agreements, as long as you're protected, you can dream, as you said, your dream. You can dream and make sure your dream is protected. Thoughts on that, Dio?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's such a great point. I think we sometimes don't realize that it's not just, you know, yes, it is business and our family is our business and the ways that we like set it up and protect our family is extremely important. Right. And um it's funny, one of my, at the time I was like, oh, this is morbid, but it's not. My partner, at the time we had been married, we were married, and one of the first gifts she gave me was a will. Right. And I was like,
Nice.
yeah. Yes, yes, yes. But you know what I mean? We were
I
also
got you.
younger, right? Right.
You
But
didn't
in
think, well, good, a will to give me like planning for a funeral or something.
yeah,
Will part.
exactly.
I get what you mean. Kind of a weird gift, yes, but important.
That's like, but yeah, right. It's a weird gift. And it's also like, oh, this is love. Right. And it's just like, no, like love is protection, right? And I think about particularly within communities of color, there's a lot of, everyone has a story of a land dispute in their family, or someone who didn't have a will, or someone who didn't have these protections, right? And being able to walk and have those conversations around, an estate planning should be a say, okay, someone has life insurance, where is it? And even if you do have life insurance, you need to still make sure that you have
Yes.
a will and a trust in place to make sure that it doesn't go through. Like, even thinking about like our biggest artists, like the fact that Prince and Aretha Franklin in particular didn't have like wills and estates is like huge, right?
They could have just went to rocketlawyer.com and took care of it.
Right, there you go. There you go. Literally could have.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, but just thinking about and like the impacts of that has generationally
Mhm.
too, but also not everybody having access to like legal folks that they could that that was also a time with the record companies were like screwing people out of everything, right? So it's like maybe they didn't trust, every lawyer that so there's a lot of things here. So I think in terms of also having that maybe someone that's not also having their own investment in what you're doing. I think Rocket Lawyer 2 can play an impartial party in that.
No, for sure. Rocket
Also
Lawyer.
having other supports and resources, but
Yeah,
yeah.
no, for sure. Rocket Lawyer makes it, I think, accessible to all, and this is kind of the work you do will lead into that. I think it makes it very accessible to anyone who wants to make sure they're protected, have protection, legal protection, et cetera, for their dreams. As you said, how important is your dream? Rocket Lawyer definitely helps do that. Dio, let's recap and talk about again. We're talking to Dio Aldridge here, Chosen Collective Consulting, and more. Dio, why don't you give us a main website or two that we should look at for those who are listening to this interview and want to connect with you? What website should we go to?
Yes, our main website right now is chosencollective.org. So again, it's chosen and the word collective.org. And then we'll be launching at the beginning of February, chosenretreats.org. So chosen and then the word retreats.org. So really excited. But again, just feel free to go to chosencollective.org.
I love that. So, Dio, let's talk right about Chosen Collective. Why did you start it? How did you start it? Feel free to take your time and unpack the story, and then we'll lead up to today. You can kind of recap again what you're doing, but why Chosen Collective? What's the story of who Dio is? And then love to know a few examples of what you're doing today.
For sure, absolutely. So yeah, my name is Dio, as was by now. And ultimately, I have been working in. Well, I'll start here. So I was born in Costa Rica, raised in Southern California, and my childhood was. My mother is a social worker, my father is a Baptist minister. So that was my upbringing, right? So definitely centered around community, around spirituality, around. I was also an athlete, so also just like personal wellness and care. Right. But being in the environment, being raised by the parents that I came into this world to were was really very much shapes what I do now. And it leads me to, starting a career in higher education specifically. Predominantly first working actually in residence life. Right. So understand the residence halls, right, which was really important. I was a residence assistant in undergrad as well as led some student groups for black students, for queer students, for LGBTQ students. Right. So always kind of did that type of work. Anyway, till now, I started Chosen Collective after having a career of over 10 years in higher education. And I really saw the importance of hosting spaces that really supported individuals, companies, and organizations in understanding the histories of communities of colors, the challenges that we had, right? And not just from a lens of let's just understand, Blackness here or Latinaness here, right? But more so understanding that in relationship to LGBTQ identity and seeing those things as together as intersectional. Um, so that's the work that I do now. So I left my full-time position, my career, my full-time position and started Chosen
You took
Collective
the
about
jump.
4 years ago. I really did. I was like, let's do it. Right.
I love it.
And so I do that too for work of both supporting, I work I'm grateful, have been successful in terms of working with higher education. So continuing that is being that those communities are being like, of course, where I kind of started,
Hmm.
right? And also looking at tech, and also finance and banking, as well as, of course, nonprofits that are community centered and philanthropy as well. So having a wide kind of breadth of different types of clients and areas, which I'm really excited in terms of consulting and speaking. And I think what makes us really unique is again that mixture of history, of storytelling, while also ensuring that we come in with the procedure and the action planning and how to institute some of these things and what can some of those policy shifts can look like as well. So that's our mix.
I love that.
For example, we have a workshop that we do during Pride Month. It's actually one of our most popular ones. It's during Pride and June, and it's called um, we really highlight Pride Month and Juneteenth, right? And it's called Building Across, right? So understanding the histories of both events, their interconnectedness, and also how we can support communities within that organization more tangibly, right? That are BIPOC, that are LGBTQ, particularly Black LGBTQ people. So that's one of our works. And then thinking about communities who haven't had access to travel,
Hmm.
right? Right. That travel isn't really accessible. It's expensive for one, which I'm learning, right? And which is really important in terms of that shift to the nonprofit space, right? Too, but and also like thinking about like the importance of, whether our grandparents were able to travel, whether or not, folks have been able to access having a passport, what that looks like to go to a passport office and all those different things. Right. So thinking about investing in wellness in a travel-oriented environment, right? In a way that's also values-based, right? Investing in local businesses also in Costa Rica, right? Imparting the knowledge and history, right, of Costa Rica as well, along with, of course, having these really beautiful and robust conversations and spaces. So yeah, so I'm really excited to intertwine and kind of interconnect these, right? Because they are connected while also having these separate entities to house them. Yeah.
And then what's the model? Curious, is it a mixed model? I know, talking as one who has some communities and builds things, are you a media company partly where you have maybe corporate sponsors, or is it more private label where company X pays you to help them do a community building? And or is it, hey, we're doing something and then we get people to sign up as individuals, or a mixture of? Just give us a few of the
Yeah, yeah,
pillars of
yeah.
of, of Chosen Collective.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for asking. It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
And I think that's so there's one particularly, for example, we did have an organization, they're a nonprofit organization based out of New York that reached out that needed strategic planning for their organization, along with some work around like, yeah, community team building and also needed a retreat, right? Because we know retreats are some of the most important aspects of team building and of organization and of making those organizational shifts and changes, right?
Hmm.
Right, if done effectively. So we did have, a series of spaces leading up to that involved strategic planning, and we also did a retreat right in the middle of that process for the organization that was, partly was mostly honestly us within in a room, of course, during the day, doing the strategic planning process, right? But of course, and but all intentionally starting our days, right, with breathing, with stretching, with wellness, then going into our meetings, right? And then ending our day with a nice dinner, right, with different activities, right? So it's just having a more intentional, of course, curating. So again, so I guess in terms of services, curating that those 7 days
Sure.
together while also being partial of the other potential projects that are interconnected. So yes, so there's that. And then we also have a cohort model of called the Chosen Collective Leadership Experience, which we're going to be launching very soon. That's more so the retreat while also having community building and oriented activations before.
Love that.
So ones that center wellness, and then related to like estate planning, right? Us as communities who often don't have those conversations, us talking
I
about,
didn't.
yeah,
I had
yeah.
great parents, great loving parents, but wealth building, put your money in an envelope and just save it.
Yeah, no, exactly, exactly.
Pretty
Just
much
save,
it.
save, save, right? Which is important,
Yeah.
but also like, how do you make what's compound interest? Like,
Yeah.
what's a Roth IRA? You know,
Yes.
what are those things? Like, okay, my company matches. I actually forgot about that.
That's
Am
right.
I maximizing that? You know what I mean? Just having some of those different conversations, with in addition to a retreat, because previously it was the retreat space, which was really powerful and amazing, but it was like, okay, all this amazing energy, let's make sure that we also use it to tackle and to address some of the other things in our lives too. Right. So yeah.
Love that. And then finally, but Dio, feel free to, again, we're talking to Dio Aldridge, who's the founder of Chosen Collective, and you can see all the things he's doing at chosencollective.com.
Or
.org, chosen,
yeah,
chosencollective.org. I thought that, chosencollective.org. Check out all the things he's doing and new things that he's going to launch that'll probably be already fully running by the time people see this. But Dio, talk about advice for fellow business owners. And I personally believe that nonprofits and business are exactly the same. One's just more focused on mission and has some IRS rules and things, but you should run it as a business. But talk to business owners for profit that are building a business and making money, etc. And then I think you have some experience with the, I'll call it the greater good side of life. Maybe any input on that person is like, you know what, I just want to help people and raise money and all this, but they got to pay themselves, Deal. They got to pay their staff. So feel free, wherever you want to take this, just give some advice for the entrepreneurs, the business owners, one or two or three things that you can say, hey, here's what we've done well, or here's what we did wrong at the beginning, and lessons learned. Take it where you want.
and I'll take some advice anytime if anyone wants to drop some in the chat. No.
Yes, indeed.
No, yeah, but I think there is a particular lesson and continued check-in with self, particularly when you are social impact oriented, right? Right, when you are someone who ultimately wants to make a social impact, someone who wants to make particular investments, because right, you see, like, first of all, like in my community, there's so much brilliance, right? When I think about some of the Black trans, I'm also a trans, I didn't mention that I'm also a transgender person, right? So thinking about like, things like, housing, right, being a big need, right, for a lot of particularly Black and Latina trans people and youth, right, thinking about like, oh wow, for myself, I want to buy property because one day, of course, I want to have some for leave some for my children and my family, but I also want to leave some for chosen family as well, right, right. So thinking about like, um, thinking about, of course, that heart. If you have that heart, it's really important to take care of yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you know that ultimately you are a giver, right? If you know that you're not here to just like take all the like grab all the resources and like chill on a hill, like you know what I mean? If you know that that's ultimately your intention, I think you need to take care of yourself even more so.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some of the things I often say is like, unfortunately, good people like evil people have like evil folks' is high blood pressure is like chill, good folks, their high blood pressure spikes, right?
Yes.
Because we're
Yes.
often trying to make sure that we're
Yeah.
okay, that that we're treated so and so well, etc. Right. So I think that's my first and foremost. And then protection and taking care of yourself does include, of course, physical, your spiritual wellness, and making sure that you do have that routine that you need for yourself to get yourself together, right? Or your community of people to do that too, to help you with that journey.
Yeah.
And then protecting also means finding that legal protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think often as entrepreneurs too, especially as folks who are legal, who want to do social impact work, it's really easy for us to, go ahead and just like, of course we want to hire our community members, we want to hire people that we know, family, etc., which we can do that absolutely, right? And but it doesn't negate the need to also make sure that there's legal support around that,
Mm-hmm.
unless you don't have something in place, right? Right? Because that's really important, right? That ultimately, and it's not just for your business, it's for the both of you, right? It's a
Yeah.
learning experience for the both of you, right? In terms of protection, right? So I think that's number two. I might have gave I probably gave them all
No,
already.
I love it. The two things,
Um,
you had one more?
Let me see one more.
Okay, sure, please. And while
Um,
you're thinking, two things I'm hearing just to recap that even is that one, take care
yeah.
of yourself. You didn't go to the speeds and feeds and do Facebook ads or profit and loss or hiring or leadership. All those things are important, but you said make sure you're okay. Make sure you are holistic. Make sure well. That's one thing I heard. Number two that I'm hearing is that as well as that as you grow your business and et cetera, make sure you're protected. the legal protection. Make sure you can do other things right and hire your cousin, your auntie, your uncle, hire your person who you grew up with in high school. That's great, but still make sure you sign. Have some clarity in what you're doing. Be legally protected. Those are two things I'm hearing from Dio Aldridge of Chosen Collective.
Absolutely. Yes, that's it. That's amazing. Yep, that's it.
Love it.
And the third one is just do it.
Mm,
I think, I can speak for myself. Sometimes we spend so much time thinking about the worry of starting a business or of
mm,
doing that next step of doing that thing of social media content of
mm,
we spend 3 hours worrying and 1 hour on the tasks.
mm. You got to
And
reverse it.
yeah, and exactly reverse it. It's like, oh, whoa. I'm saying this as someone who's chronically working through that, right? But I think also at the same time, like, you know, uh, yeah, I think there's so much on the other side of fear, and I think it sounds so cheesy. Every like, remember the Titans, all of these movies have the same message, but it is truly true, like around some of these things, right? Just really try, and work towards it and work through any fears that you have and do it scared. Like you don't have to be not scared to do it. I might walk up on stage like this, but at the end of the day, it gets done and it's a great experience for us all, you know what I mean? And so like I think like just do what you got to do sometimes, too, but also take care of yourself while doing it, right? I think is important because we also want you here for a long time, especially if you have a social impact or regardless, if you're a good person in this world, we also need you to, regardless of what your
Keep
business
being
may,
good.
yeah, but like, we also need to make sure that you're okay and taken care of. So
Yes.
yeah.
Dio Aldridge, I can talk to you for hours and hours and hours on end, but everybody check out what Aldridge is doing at chosencollective.org, chosencollective.org, and see the things that Dio is launching and the team and what he's working on as well. So, Dio, thank you for being here with me. Thank you for being a Rocket Lawyer customer and talking about all the great things and how you're using Rocket Lawyer to protect your business. My name is Ramon, everybody, publisher of zoneofgenius.com. Excited to bring you more insight and information about how customers like Dio, like Chosen Collective, are growing their businesses and thriving and succeeding, powered by Rocket Lawyer. Thanks, Dio.